Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, May the 22nd, and welcome to our commentary. Just a quick heads up on Mondays, as I've told you before, we'll be recording our podcast with our friend Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. That podcast will be available later in the evening, Monday evening, on this blog and as well as some of the others. We also have a couple of videos that I want to remind you about. On Friday, we recorded a conversation with our friend Alberto de la Cruz, who's the editor of the Babalu blog in Miami. This is a Cuban American blog, and I have personally posted there many, many times. In fact, some of these videos are shown on that blog. It deals with Cuban American issues, obviously, a lot of things going on in Cuba. And on this particular interview that we had with Alberto, we talked a little bit about a couple of anniversaries in Cuban history. May 19th, the death of Jose Marti, and May 20th, another anniversary of Cuban independence. So we have that on the video inventory if you want to check it out. Very good interviews, I thought, very informative with our friend Alberto de la Cruz. And then on Sunday night, we had a very interesting chat with a lady from Mexico, Killen Dillon, who is a contributor to Pulse News Mexico. And we talked about some of the recent stories in Mexico about fentanyl coming into Mexico via China and then finding its way into Mexico and ultimately into the United States. It's a big story down in Mexico. I think it's starting to get a little action down there. We'll have to see how this impacts any future relations between the United States and Mexico, because Mexico, or at least the president of Mexico, had denied this connection with China and fentanyl, and it looks like the reporters beat him to it. And that's the story down in Mexico. So check out that interview that we did with Kalen Dillon, a reporter with Pulse News Mexico. I thought it was interesting, all the information that we got from that interview. Well, I've got a post coming out on Tuesday regarding Senator Ted Cruz. As you know, he's running for reelection. And he's going to be, at the moment, it looks like he'll be running against one of two Democrats, Congressman Allred here in the Dallas area, and State Senator Gutierrez, who's down in South Texas. There's also the possibility that the mayor of Houston, Mr. Sylvester, could jump in, but I haven't really heard much about that possibility. As you know, running for the Senate in Texas is a very expensive proposition because you've got several television markets. You've got Dallas, you have Houston, San Antonio, El Paso, Austin, and requires a lot of money to run an effective campaign in Texas, again, because of all of the big media markets and large population centers as well. And these two Democrats are officially running. I don't think Gutierrez has actually formally declared, but everybody is expecting him to do that. They're both very similar in the sense that they're both liberals. Now, Congressman Allred has been more of a low-profile kind of liberal, and Senator Gutierrez, or State Senator Gutierrez, has been very active in the gun control issue, especially after Uvalde, because his Senate district includes the city of Uvalde, where that terrible shooting occurred a year ago. So I don't think either one of them right now presents a challenge to Senator Cruz. But again, never want to underestimate your opponents. But I think there's two problems that these Democrats have running against Senator Cruz. The first problem they have is what I like to call the 254 problem, which is Texas. In order to win in Texas, you've got to compete in 254 counties, because that's how big Texas is. And these counties, these rural counties and counties outside of the metropolitan centers, they are very important, and they make up a large part of the electorate. And if you cannot compete in those counties, you're going to have a hard time winning, as we saw with Beto O'Rourke, as we saw 2 years before with the lady who ran against Senator Cornyn. And even in the case of Beto O'Rourke in 2018, when he ran a pretty good campaign and came within 3 points. What eventually killed him was those rural areas that I'm talking about. So they're going to have a hard time because of that. They're going to have a hard time because of that. Now, both campaigns are going to try to say that their people are moderates and that Cruz is a radical. But if you look at the record of Congressman Allred, and to a lesser extent, the record of State Senator Gutierrez, what you find is really liberal candidates. I mean, Representative Allred has voted with the Democrats in Washington practically 99% of the time. I can't think of a single time where he stood against legislation being proposed by the Democrats in Washington. And I'm pretty sure that Senator Cruz is going to be pointing that out. I'm pretty sure that Senator Cruz is going to be pointing that out when they debate, or at least as part of the campaign. I think Senator Cruz probably learned a lot from his race against Beto O'Rourke a few years ago. And what you learn from what I hope he learned is the same thing that Governor Abbott did. You've got to come out very quickly and point out that your opponent is a liberal. You have to paint him as a liberal as early as possible. And given the records of Representative Allred and State Senator Gutierrez, I don't think that's going to be very difficult, but it's got to get done. And Senator Cruz, his campaign has to be out there making this distinction. The other problem that I think that the Democrats are going to have is I don't believe that the Democrat National Party is going to be spending a lot of money in Texas in 2024. Look, they spent a lot of money in 2018 and 2020 and 2022, and the so-called blue fantasy was not realized. In other words, Texas is still very red. In fact, it became more red in 20 and in 22. So you have to wonder, if you're the Democrat National Committee and you're looking at where to spend your money, well, you're going into the election with 51 senators. So you don't have a lot of numbers. You don't have a big lead, in other words. And you're likely going to lose West Virginia and Montana and very likely Ohio. So you got those three that you're probably going to lose. So that brings you down to 48. So you cannot afford to lose any more if you want to have any shot at winning the majority or keeping the majority, small majority that they have. So they're going to have to focus on defending their own. And if they're going to target a Republican, it's going to have to be a Republican that they have a very good shot at beating. And that's not the case with Senator Cruz. So I just don't think that this is going to be very competitive. But again, you don't take anything for granted. And I'm hoping that Senator Cruz will be out there campaigning very hard and painting his opponents for the liberals that they are. Now, we have a couple of quick stories. Senator Scott of South Carolina, he has officially announced that he's running. I think he's an excellent candidate and someone who I always thought would be a great vice president. So keep an eye on him. He had one of the most amazing declarations of candidacy that I've heard in quite some time. The man is a gifted speaker. He speaks from the heart and he connects with the audience. And he has an amazing message as an African-American growing up in the United States. So I think he's got a shot, a real shot at the vice presidency. Now, again, anything can happen because right now the two leaders are DeSantis and Trump. So assuming that stays that way, I don't see an opening for him at the top, but I do see an opening for him as vice president, and I think he would make an excellent one. But again, his announcement today was just absolutely unbelievable. The reaction to the reaction to the Durham report on the part of Democrats, but especially the media, you expect the Democrats not to take it too seriously, but with respect to the media, really is very disappointing. Look, it is true that this report did not indict anybody, but that was not the objective of the report. The objective of the report was to tell a story. And the story that the report tells is a very frightening story of an FBI targeting people, an FBI operating outside of the law, and an FBI that should concern every American, because what was done to Trump could be done to a Democrat if we don't correct that kind of behavior. But it is amazing to me how many in the media just want to say nothing about this and hoping that it'll go away if they say nothing. I don't think it's going to go away, by the way, because I think this is going to end up, people from this report are going to end up before the House committees, And this is going to grow, I think, as we get closer to 2024. And if Trump is a candidate, you better believe that he's going to focus on this report, and he should. He should focus on this report. I mean, what was done to Trump was not just a violation, was not just an injustice, it was a violation of the law to use a fake document that came from a political campaign to open an investigation against him and his campaign. I mean, that's not the United States. So there ought to be some people here who are punished, and I think they will be. I think they will be once this report is digested in the public domain, and also, frankly, as I said before, when these people start going in front of the House committee. But what was done to President Trump was a real injustice. And let me tell you something too. The other issue that I believe has to be coming out, and I think it will come out as well, is this letter that was signed by these 50 so-called experts. A letter that had tremendous influence in the 2020 election. I mean, when you're in the second debate and you bring up this Russia thing, and then Joe Biden can point to a letter and say, look, these guys are saying that this is disinformation. And then we learned later that it was not disinformation, that in fact the laptop was real. The letter itself was disinformation. What a travesty that is. So these issues are going to come out. They're going to become a part of the campaign, even if the media, frankly, doesn't want to deal with it. Again, check out our conversation with Bill Katz. We'll have that Monday evening available on our blog, and we're going to get into some of these issues with Bill later on today. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.